Picture this for a moment. A man being dragged by his own family through a village square like cattle being led to market. Picture the looks of contempt, the cruel whispers, the crushing weight of public humiliation. Now imagine that same man, just hours later, sitting beside one of the most powerful women in the country. This is a story that defies everything we think we know about destiny, worth, and divine justice. I am the billionaire butler, and this is a story few would dare tell. A story about a man society deemed worthless, but who discovered that sometimes God uses the rejected to teach us the deepest lessons about true value. In a quiet village, far from the noise of the big city, lived a man named Ades. He was a gentle soul with soft eyes and a calm spirit. Everyone in the village agreed he was one of the kindest men they'd ever met. His skin glowed like polished bronze, and his smile could calm any storm. He always greeted people with respect, helped neighbors carry firewood, and even cooked food for those who had nothing. But despite all the goodness in his heart, he carried a heavy pain that no one could see. For 6 long years, Ades had been married to a woman named Chinaza. At first, their marriage was full of laughter, love, and promise, but as the years passed, no child came, and that was when everything changed. Pause here. Because what you need to understand is that in traditional cultures, a man without children isn't just considered unlucky. He's seen as cursed, as incomplete, as failed in his very masculine essence. One evening, as the sun was setting and the orange sky painted the village gold, Ades sat outside his small house, peeling cassava slowly. His fingers moved, but his heart wasn't in it. His eyes were distant, staring into nothing. His mother, Ngozi, stood in the doorway and hissed loudly. "You're sitting there like a log of wood," she said sharply. "Others are celebrating their children. You're just wasting space." Ades didn't answer. He'd heard these words too many times. His father, Okwudili, came out next. He held a glass cup filled with palm wine and looked at him like he was a stranger. "I don't know why God gave me a son like you," he said. 6 years in your wife's house. Not even a miscarriage. Are you a man at all?" Adai's throat tightened. He tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. What could he say that he hadn't already said 100 times? He looked down at his hands. They were clean, strong, and always busy, but they had never held a child of his own. It wasn't because he didn't want to. It was because something wasn't working, and nobody wanted to find out what. In the village, when a couple couldn't have children, they always blamed the man for not being man enough, or the woman for being cursed. But curiously, in this case, everyone pointed fingers at Ades. That night, as he lay on his mat, Ades heard his parents arguing in the next room. At first, he didn't pay attention. They always fought about money. But then he heard his name. "We need that money, Ngozi," Okwudili whispered harshly. "Lady Obioma said she'll pay in full. Whether he likes it or not, Ades is going." His mother's voice was lower, but just as firm. "What if he refuses? He's not a child anymore. Then we force him. Let me remind you, he's living under our roof again. That wife of his sent him back like expired goods, and he has no child to tie him to her. He has no power here." Ades sat up quickly, his heart pounding. His chest rose and fell like someone who had just run a long distance. He couldn't believe what he'd just heard. His own parents were planning to sell him off, but to whom and for what? He quietly stood up, tiptoed to the wall, and placed his ear closer. "She said she wants a man in her house," his father continued. "She doesn't care if he's sterile. She said he'll cook, wash, and warm her bed, that's all." His mother sighed. "But Ades isn't useless. He helps me at the market. He cooks. He's still a good boy." His father raised his voice. "Then let him be useful to the family and bring in money. Or do you want to keep feeding a grown man who can't even give us grandchildren?" Ades pressed his hands tightly against his mouth to stop himself from crying out. His legs felt weak, his stomach twisted. He backed away slowly from the wall, tears falling down his cheeks. He couldn't believe it. His own parents, the ones who raised him, were ready to sell him like an old goat because he couldn't father children. But wait, because what happened next would reveal a truth that would change everything we think about this story. The next morning, Adaiz didn't eat. He just sat silently in the backyard, staring at the wall. His mother passed by him twice, didn't say a word. His father didn't even look at him. Then, in the afternoon, they called him inside. "We're going to the village square," Okwudili said. "Dress well. Someone is waiting." Adaiz looked at him with red eyes. "Why are you doing this to me?" His father slapped the table. "Don't talk back to me. You're lucky someone is still interested in you. If it was another family, they would have thrown you in the river." "But I'm your son," Adaiz whispered. Ngozi didn't meet his eyes. "Just do what your father says." Adaiz stood there frozen. It felt like he couldn't breathe. His legs were shaking, his throat was dry, but something inside him told him to stay calm for now. They walked in silence down the dusty path to the village square. Onlookers noticed them coming. Adaiz heard whispers behind him. "That's the Sterile one. Ah, I heard his parents want to exchange him for money. Shame." He kept walking, his head low. It was like walking inside a nightmare with no end. When they reached the center of the square, a woman stood there beside a car. She was elegant, wearing a long brown coat. Her eyes looked calculating. Lady Obioma. She looked at Adaiz from head to toe, then turned to Okwudili. "He looks tired," she said. "I hope he won't be too slow around the house." "He's hard-working," his father said quickly. "He's been carrying his mother's goods since he was 10. The woman grunted and pulled out an envelope filled with cash. "This is the balance." His father reached out, ready to grab it. That was the moment Adaiz lost control. "Stop," he shouted, stepping back. "You can't do this to me. I'm not a slave." Lady Obioma raised an eyebrow. "He has a loud mouth." Okwudili grabbed Adaiz by the arm and yanked him forward. "Keep quiet, you disgrace. After all we've done for you, this is how you thank us?" Tears rolled down his cheeks as he struggled to pull his arm away. "You raised me to be a man of value. Now you're throwing me away like trash." Ngozi stepped forward. "Adaizi, don't make a scene, just obey. This is for the good of the family." "What about my own good?" he screamed. "What about my future? What about love?" The crowd around them grew. Some people looked shocked, others laughed. He should be grateful someone still wants him. Adaiz turned to run, but his father blocked his path. "Let's just take him," Lady Obioma muttered. "He'll calm down later." She pushed the envelope forward. That was when a sleek black SUV drove into the square and stopped. The engine purred like a lion. All eyes turned. The door opened slowly, and a tall woman in a deep blue suit stepped out. She wore dark sunglasses. Her face was calm, but her presence made the entire square fall silent. Behind her, through the tinted glass, little faces peeked out, 4 children watching closely. The woman walked toward the scene without fear, like she already knew what was happening. When she reached them, she removed her glasses and looked directly at Okwudili. "Is this your son?" she asked. "Yes," the father replied, confused. "Who are you?" The woman ignored the question. She turned to Adaizi. "Are you being forced?" she asked gently. Adaizi could barely nod, his throat too tight to speak. The woman looked back at Okwudili. How much was she paying? Lady Obioma folded her arms. "Who are you to interfere?" The woman turned slowly to face her. "I'm someone who doesn't like to watch wickedness in silence." She pulled out a thick leather wallet, opened it and counted twice the money in Lady Obioma's hand. She gave it to Okwudili and said, "Take this, but know that you're selling your own soul." Then she turned to Adaizi. "You're safe now. Come with me." The crowd gasped. Ngozi blinked in shock. "Who are you?" "My name is Amara," she said, "and I don't buy people. I rescue them." Adaizi's legs felt weak. His body shook, but somehow he found the strength to walk toward her. She opened the car door, and he got in. For the first time in years, Adaiz felt something stir inside his chest. Hope. But here's what's fascinating about this story, my dear listener. What seemed like the end was just the beginning. Because this mysterious woman, Amara, she was one of the most powerful businesswomen in the country. And there was something about Adai's that she had noticed long before, that day in the square. The moment Adai's sat inside that black SUV, everything went quiet. His heartbeat was loud in his ears. His body felt heavy, but his hands were shaking. For the first time in a long time, someone had stood up for him, but he didn't know whether to trust it. He sat still, his eyes wide, staring at nothing. The car smelled clean, like new leather and something expensive he couldn't name. The woman, Amara, got in beside him and gently closed the door. She didn't speak right away. She let the silence sit between them, not forcing him to talk. Through the rearview mirror he saw the children staring at him, 4 of them, their eyes curious, confused. One of them, a small girl with round cheeks, whispered something to her older sister. The sister gave her a look and shook her head. "Are you okay?" Amara finally asked. Adaise swallowed hard. He wanted to say yes, but his voice came out low and broken. "I don't know." She nodded like she understood. "You don't have to say anything now. Just rest. You're safe." He turned his face to the window and nodded slowly. The driver started the engine. The car moved forward, leaving the crowd and his parents behind as they drove out of the village square. He looked back once. Just once. His father was still holding the envelope full of cash. His mother was biting her lips, pretending to look sad, but she didn't run after the car. They didn't stop him. They just stood there. That was when he knew they had truly given him away, without any shame. Adaise's tears started again. He wiped them quickly, hoping no one saw, but Amara noticed. "You don't have to hold it in," she said softly. "Let it out if you want." He looked at her sharply. "Why did you do it?" "Because it was the right thing to do. But you don't even know me." "I saw enough." They went quiet again. After a while, the youngest child in the back leaned forward and touched Amara's shoulder. "Mommy," she said in a small voice. "Who is he?" Amara looked at Adaise. She didn't speak for a moment. "He's someone who needed help," she said finally. "He'll be staying with us for a while." "For how long?" the girl asked. Amara glanced at Adaise again. "As long as he wants." Adaise blinked. He didn't know how to respond to that. What was he a guest, a servant, a project? He didn't ask. He just stayed quiet. It took almost 2 hours to reach the city. As the car left the rough village roads behind, the view changed. Trees became buildings. Dusty huts became tall fences. Bicycles turned into moving cars, buses, and honking motorcycles. Adaise sat stiff, eyes wide, like a man who had never seen wealth up close. And truthfully, he hadn't. Not like this. When the car finally turned into a large compound with a silver gate that opened by itself, Adaise's mouth dropped slightly. The house wasn't a house. It was a mansion. White walls, glass windows, green grass, clean driveway, a fountain in front that sparkled as water danced under the sun. Everything looked like a photo from a magazine. The car stopped. A tall, slim woman in a grey uniform came out to open the door. Amara stepped out first. Then the children came out one by one. Adaize remained seated. Amara turned to him. "You can come out. No one will harm you here." He nodded slowly and stepped out of the car. His legs felt weak. He stood straight, not wanting to look small in front of all this beauty, but inside he felt like a stranger. The tall woman looked at him from head to toe. "This is Adaize," Amara said. "He's joining us." The woman didn't smile. She just nodded. "I'm Kemi. I manage things in this house," she said in a firm voice. "Come, I'll show you where you'll stay." Adaize followed her silently. As he walked, he could feel the children watching him. He didn't dare turn around. Inside the mansion, the floors were smooth and shiny. The walls were white and clean. Paintings hung on them, big, colorful paintings that looked expensive. The air smelled like lemon and something else he couldn't name. A cool breeze from the air conditioner touched his skin. Kemi opened a door at the end of a long hallway. "This will be your room," she said. The room was big, bigger than his parents' entire house. There was a large bed with white bed sheets, a wardrobe, and a small table with a flower vase. "You can shower, rest, or sleep. No one will disturb you." Adaize nodded. "Thank you." Kemi paused. "You're lucky." Miss Amara is a good woman." Then she walked away. Later that evening, Ade sat on the bed staring at the walls. He hadn't touched anything. He didn't even sit on the pillow. He still felt like a visitor, like someone who didn't belong. A knock came on the door. He jumped. Amara stepped in, holding a tray with a bowl of rice and a bottle of water. "You didn't come out for dinner," she said. "I wasn't hungry," he replied softly. "You need to eat something." She placed the tray on the table and turned to leave. Then she paused. "I want you to feel at peace here. No one will force you to do anything. You're not here to repay me." Ade looked up at her slowly. "Then why did you bring me here?" she sighed. "Because I saw someone who needed a second chance, and I know how that feels." She didn't wait for him to respond. She left quietly, closing the door behind her. The next morning, Ade woke up early. He didn't sleep much, but he didn't want to look lazy. He opened the wardrobe. Inside were simple clothes, clean, new, folded neatly. Not expensive things, just decent, someone had prepared them for him. He picked a plain shirt and wore it, then stepped into the hallway. He didn't know where to go. He heard voices and followed the sound. It led him to the kitchen. Kemi was already there, cooking. "You're up," she said. Ade nodded. "I want to help." Kemi stared at him for a moment. "You don't have to." "I want to." Kemi moved aside. "Fine, peel these carrots." Ade rolled up his sleeves and got to work. His hands moved fast. Cooking was something he could do well. As they worked together in silence, one of the children came in. The same older girl who had given Ade a cold look in the car. She paused when she saw him. "You're the man from yesterday," the girl said. "Yes," Ade replied. "My name is Ade. I'm Zara," she said, not smiling back. "Are you here to replace our father?" The knife in Ade's hand paused. "No," he said softly. "No one can replace your father." "Because we don't want another father." Zara narrowed her eyes. Then she turned and walked out. Ade stared at the carrot in his hand. His throat tightened again. The rest of the day was quiet. Amara had gone to work. The children mostly stayed in their rooms or in the garden. Ade didn't try to force anything. He just stayed in the background helping Kemi, learning the house, watching everything. That night during dinner, Amara called everyone to the table. The children came. Ade sat at the far end. Zara sat beside her younger siblings and stared at Ade the whole time. Amara noticed. "Zara, do you want to say something?" "Yes," she said boldly. "Why is he sitting here?" "He lives here now," Amara replied. "He's not family. He's welcome at this table." Zara folded her arms. "I don't like it." Amara sighed. "I know this is hard, but being kind is not hard. Let's all be kind." The room went quiet. The youngest girl, Chidera, looked at Ade. "Are you going to leave us too?" Eyes softened. She asked. "Not if you don't want me to." She smiled. Zara rolled her eyes. That night, Ade sat on his bed, feeling a little different, a little warmer inside. Someone had smiled at him. Someone had accepted him. Even if just one child, the journey ahead still looked long. He didn't know what Amara really wanted from him. He didn't know how the other children would treat him tomorrow. But for the first time since his marriage collapsed, he didn't feel like a ghost. He reached for the untouched plate of rice from yesterday and took a small bite. It was cold, but it tasted like hope. But here's where the story becomes truly fascinating. Because what Ade didn't know is that Amara had been watching him for far longer than he imagined, and the reasons she brought him to her home went much deeper than simple kindness. Ade stood by the window, staring at the flowers in the garden. It was morning again, and the sun was already shining through the glass. Birds flew past the trees, and a gentle breeze made the curtains dance softly behind him, but inside his heart, everything still felt strange. This place, this house, this life, it didn't feel real. Just days ago, he was being dragged through his village square like an object. Now he was living under a roof so big that his entire village could fit inside the living room. But even with all the space, Ade felt like he was tiptoeing through someone else's dream. He had met people with wealth before, but none like Amara. The woman didn't speak much, she didn't boast, she didn't throw money around, But when she spoke, everyone listened, and the way she stepped into his pain without hesitation, that moment at the village square kept playing in his head over and over again. Who does something like that for a complete stranger? Why him? He hadn't even said thank you properly. A knock on the door broke his thoughts. He opened it. It was the youngest child, Chidera, holding a small drawing in her hand. She looked up at him with wide, innocent eyes. "Uncle Adaze!" she shouted, smiling proudly. "I drew you." Adaze blinked, surprised. "You drew me?" "Yes, in the garden when you were smiling at the flowers." She took the drawing gently and unfolded it. It was rough and full of scribbles, but she could clearly see what he meant. There was a man in a blue shirt standing next to a sunflower. "I can draw you again later," he whispered, she said. "I'd like that very much," he replied, kneeling to her height. "Don't tell Zara," she added quickly, glancing around. "She'll be angry." "Why would she be angry?" She leaned in and whispered, "Because she thinks you'll make us forget our daddy." Adaze's smile faded a little. He touched her cheek gently. "I can never take your daddy's place. I can only be your friend." Chidera nodded, then ran off, happy with his answer. Later that day, Amara returned from work earlier than usual. She walked into the house dressed in a navy blue suit, her tie a bit loose like she'd been wearing it all day. Her face was calm, but her eyes looked tired, like someone who carried too many things in her heart. Adaze, who was helping Kemi arrange the dining table, stood still when he saw her. She noticed. "You don't have to pause when I walk in," she said softly. "I'm still trying to get used to everything," he replied. She gave a small nod. "You're doing well." She didn't know what to say to that. As Amara walked past him, Zara came running down the stairs with a folder in her hand. "Mommy, you promised to check my homework today," she said. "I didn't forget," she replied. They walked toward the study together, but just before turning the corner, Zara turned her head and gave Adaze a sharp stare. A stare that said, "Don't get comfortable. This is my family." Adaze felt that stare like a knife in his chest. Adaze stood alone in the garden, his hands brushing gently over the petals of a rose. The flowers were beautiful, bright, alive. He had always loved flowers. Back home, he used to plant small ones in front of his room. His father called them useless decorations, but to him they made the world feel softer. "Do you like flowers?" He turned quickly. It was Amara standing a few steps behind him. "I'm sorry," he said, stepping away from the bush. "I didn't mean to." "It's okay. I planted these myself." "You did?" She nodded. "After my husband passed, I needed something to keep my hands busy." Adaze looked at her quietly. He had heard bits and pieces from the children, but hearing it from her made it feel heavier. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "Thank you." They stood there in silence, the breeze blowing between them. "You must wonder why I brought you here," she said suddenly. Adaze didn't answer, but his silence spoke for him. 3 years ago, she took a breath. "My husband Amika died in a car accident. He was going to pick up Zara from school. A drunk driver hit them. Zara survived. Amika didn't." Adaze's chest tightened. "I didn't know how to tell the children. I didn't know how to comfort them. So I threw myself into work. I became a ghost in this house." Adaze looked at her closely for the first time, not as the rich woman who rescued him, but as a woman who had lost more than she ever showed. "I didn't bring you here to fill anyone's shoes," she continued. "I brought you here because when I saw the way they treated you, I saw someone who was thrown away just like we were." She swallowed hard. "I've never been compared to anyone before." Amara gave a small smile. "You don't need to be compared. You're enough." Those words, "you're enough." No one had ever said that to him before. Not his parents, not his ex-wife, not even himself. Quickly and looked away, pretending to study the flowers again. Amara turned to go. "If you ever feel like talking, I'm here." He nodded but didn't speak. After she left, he sat on the garden bench and cried silently into his hands. 2 days passed. The children slowly began to warm up to him, except for Zara. Chidera would come to his room every evening with a new drawing. The twins, Nkechi and Neka, once asked him to help them braid their doll's hair. Even the second oldest, Obinna, asked him to fix his torn shirt, but Zara kept her distance, cold, watchful, like a guard at the palace gate. Then one afternoon, while Adaiz was in the kitchen, he heard shouting from upstairs. "Don't touch Mummy's things." It was Zara. Adaiz rushed up following the sound. When he reached Zara's room, he saw Chidera crying on the floor, holding a broken picture frame. Zara stood above her, her eyes red with anger. Adaiz ran to Chidera. "What happened?" "She wanted to see Mommy's face," Zara snapped. "She touched the frame and dropped it." "It was an accident," Adaiz said, holding Chidera. "You don't belong here," Zara shouted. "You're not our mother. Don't act like it." "I never said I was." "But you want to be. I see the way Mommy looks at you. You smile at her and she smiles back like you're special. You're not. You're just some man she brought from the market." Adaiz felt like the air had been knocked out of his chest. Chidera sniffed loudly and held his hand tighter. Zara pointed at him. "Don't try to replace my father. Don't touch our things. Stay in your room. That's where you belong." Before Adaiz could reply, Amara's voice echoed from the hallway. "Zara, that's enough." She stepped into the room, her eyes calm but serious. Zara turned to her. "He's changing everything." Amara walked over slowly. "Zara, I know this is hard, but hurting your sister and insulting someone who has done nothing wrong is not how we handle pain." "He'll never be my father," Zara screamed, then ran past them, slamming the door behind her. Amara knelt down beside Adaize and Chidera. "Are you okay?" she asked. Adaize nodded slowly. "She's hurting," Amara said. "That's all this is. Her anger is coming from her wound." "I understand," Adaize replied. "You're helping, but I don't know if I'm helping more than you know." Worse. That night, Adaize stayed in his room longer than usual. He didn't join dinner. He didn't go to the garden. He just sat on his bed, staring at the ceiling. Amara knocked once and came in holding a small photo frame. "I thought this might help," she said, handing it to him. It was a picture of Zara with her father, Emeka. They were laughing together under the sun, surrounded by flowers. "He loved flowers too," Amara said. "Maybe that's why you remind me of him. Not because you're the same, but because you carry peace with you." Adaiz took the frame and held it close. "I don't want to be another version of someone else," he said quietly. "I just want to be allowed to exist." "And that's more than enough," Amara replied. She turned to leave. Then she paused and said something that made his chest squeeze tightly. "You don't know this, but the day I saw you in that village," she looked up quickly. "It wasn't the first time. I had driven past your street weeks before. I saw you carrying firewood. You gave food to an old man sitting under a tree. That kindness, it stayed with me." Adaiz stared at her, shocked. "I never forgot your face. That day at the square, when I saw your parents treating you like nothing, I knew I had to act." He looked down, took a breath. "I didn't rescue you because I felt sorry for you, Adaiz. I brought you here because the peace you carry. I want my children to feel it. I want to feel it too." He gave a soft nod and left the room. The photo of Zara and her father still sat in Adaiz's hands. He looked at it for a long time, then placed it gently on his table. For the first time, he didn't feel like a guest in the mansion. He felt like maybe, just maybe, he was starting to belong. But the journey of acceptance was just beginning, and the most shocking revelation of all was yet to come. The house. It had been 2 days since Zara shouted at Adaiz and stormed out of her room. The air inside the mansion had changed. No one spoke much. No one laughed. Even the younger children who were starting to get close to Adaiz had gone quiet. It felt like the entire house was holding its breath. Adaize spent most of his time in his room reading, praying, or helping Kemi in the kitchen. He didn't go near the children unless they came to him, and Zara hadn't looked him in the eyes since that night. But inside Adaize, something had shifted. The picture Amara gave him, the one of Zara and her late father, still sat on his bedside table. He looked at it every morning. At first, he stared at it with confusion. Now, he looked at it with understanding. Zara wasn't cruel. Zara was broken, And when a child is broken, it comes out as anger. That morning, Adaizi was washing fruits at the sink when he heard soft footsteps. He looked up and saw Obina, the second oldest child. He looked like he wanted to say something but wasn't sure how. She smiled gently. "Good morning," he nodded. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." He walked into the kitchen slowly and sat on a stool. "Do you miss your old house?" he asked. Adaizi paused. That question came from nowhere, but it carried weight. "I miss some parts," he replied. "Not the pain, but the few things that felt like home." Obina looked down. "I miss Dad." "I know." She dried her hands and came to sit across from him. "I can't imagine how hard that must be." He nodded. His voice became smaller. "He used to help me with math. Now I hate math." Adaizi smiled sadly. "Maybe I can help you. I was actually good at it in school." He looked up slowly. "Really?" "Yes." He stared at her for a few seconds, then gave a small nod. "Okay." Just then, Zara's voice echoed from the hallway. "Obina, where are you?" That afternoon, he jumped up quickly and ran out stood in the backyard, hanging clothes to dry. Faded. The sun was hot, but she didn't mind. The fresh air helped her think. Suddenly, she heard the main gate open. She turned and saw Amara walking in. She was on the phone, her voice low and serious. "Yes, I saw the report. No, I don't want to push it yet. Let's wait." A pause. "I said, let's wait. I'm not just thinking as a businesswoman, I'm thinking as a mother." Another pause. "Talk later." She ended the call and saw Adaizi. "You're working in the sun," she said. "I don't mind. It reminds me of home." She walked closer, her shirt sleeves rolled up, her tie loosened. "You spoke to Obina?" she asked. "Yes. He said he misses his father helping him with math. He hasn't said that to anyone before, not even me." Adaizi looked down. "Maybe he just needed someone who's not trying to be strong all the time." Amara nodded slowly. "They're all still healing. I thought I could protect them by pretending to be okay, but maybe I've made it worse." She turned to her. "You didn't make it worse. You gave them shelter. You gave them safety. That matters." She looked at her deeply. "And what about you? What did you get?" "I got something I didn't expect," she said. "What's that?" "A chance to be seen." Their eyes locked. The breeze blew between them. For a few seconds, neither of them moved. Then Amara looked away. "Will you be okay with the children?" "Dinner tonight?" "Yes," she replied. She nodded. "Thank you." That evening, the house felt even quieter than usual. Amara had gone out. Kemi had taken the driver to the market. The security men were outside. It was just Adaizi and the 5 children inside the mansion. She walked past the living room and saw the twins watching cartoons. Obina was reading a comic. Chidera was asleep on the couch, and Zara was nowhere to be seen. Adaizi turned to go upstairs. A soft sobbing sound stopped her. It was coming from behind the curtains in the hallway. She moved closer and gently pulled the fabric aside. Zara was sitting there, her knees pulled to her chest, her face buried. Adaizi froze. She didn't know what to do. She stood quietly, unsure. Then Zara spoke without looking up. "Why are you still here?" Adaizi swallowed. "Because I was invited." Zara sniffed. "I should have left after the day I shouted at you. But I stayed because I care." Zara looked up slowly, her face wet. "You care? You don't even know us." "You're right. I don't know everything, but I see pain, and I know what it feels like to be left behind." Zara looked at her sharply. "You didn't lose your dad." "No, but I lost something too. My parents gave me away, like I didn't matter, like I was a problem to be solved." "Not too close, Zara just enough." I was married for 6 years, no child. Everyone blamed me. My in-laws hated me. My wife sent me away. Then my own parents, they sold me. Zara's eyes widened. "Sold you?" "Yes, in the village square like an old chair no one wanted." Zara stared in silence. "That's when your mom showed up," Adaizi continued. "She didn't know me, but she saw me, and sometimes being seen is all we need." Zara looked down. "I don't hate you." Adaizi's voice softened. "I'm scared that I'll forget my dad, that we'll move on and he'll be gone forever." Adaizi slowly reached out and took Zara's hand. "You will never forget him. He's part of you, But you're allowed to let light in again. You're allowed to smile without guilt. Zara's lips trembled. I don't want a new daddy. I'm not here to be your daddy. I'm just here to care. Zara broke down in tears and leaned into Adaizi's arms. Adaizi held her gently, rubbing her back. I miss him every day, Zara sobbed. Every single day. I know, Adaizi whispered. And he knows you love him. He's proud of you. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in quiet comfort. Later that night, Amara returned. She was removing her jacket when she heard laughter from the kitchen. Real laughter, not the forced kind. The real kind. She stepped closer and peeked in. The twins were giggling. Obina was trying to balance apples on his head. Zara was smiling, really smiling for the first time in years, and in the middle of them was Adaizi helping them make fruit salad, laughing gently. Amara stood at the door, silent. Kimi came up beside her. They haven't laughed like this since Emeka passed. She nodded slowly, eyes still on the scene. Kemi looked at her. You brought him in as a helper, but maybe God brought him as a healer. Amara looked at Kemi. Later that night, maybe you're right. Adaizi stood on the balcony looking up at the stars. The cool air brushed her face. The laughter from earlier still echoed in her heart. Amara stepped out beside her. I saw you with the children, she said. She smiled gently. They make me feel alive. You've done more in 2 weeks than I could in 3 years. They just needed time and love. She looked at her closely. You've given them both. She looked up at her. So have you. Then Amara said something that made Adaizi's chest stop for a second. I don't want you to feel like you're just staying here out of pity. I want you to feel chosen. She turned to her, eyes soft. But why me? Because you didn't let pain turn you bitter. You turned it into kindness. A long pause, then she added, and because you remind me what peace feels like. Adaiz looked down, her heart full of emotions. Thank you, she whispered. Adaiz looked up at the stars inside. The mansion no longer felt silent, it felt like home. But the true transformation was just beginning, because in a few days, Adaiz would make a discovery that would change not only her perception of herself, but reveal the cruel injustice that had defined her entire adult life. The next morning, Adaiz woke up with peace in her heart. The cool air from the open window touched her face gently as sunlight filled the room. For the first time since she entered Amara's mansion, she wasn't afraid to smile to herself. Something had changed the night before, something deep. Zara had cried in her arms. She had opened up, and Adaiz had held her not as a replacement father, but simply as someone who cared. As she folded her bedsheet, she felt lighter. She combed her hair, put on a clean shirt, and stepped into the hallway, ready for whatever the day would bring. She was not ready for what she saw. Zara was sitting in the living room, her arms folded, her eyes cold again. Obina stood beside her looking confused. The twins were hiding behind the chair, and Chidera, the youngest, was standing with her lips pressed tightly. Adaiz paused at the end of the hallway. Good morning, she said slowly. Zara didn't answer. Adaiz walked in carefully, trying to understand the tension in the room. Then Zara spoke. You told Mommy everything, didn't you? Adaiz froze. Zara stood up. You told her I cried. You told her I broke down. You told her I forgave you, didn't you? No, Zara, Adaizi said gently. I didn't tell her anything. I would never do that. Then how did she know? Zara shouted. How did she know we made fruit salad? How did she know I was laughing again? I didn't tell her, Adaizi said softly. She saw it with her own eyes. She came home early. You're lying. Zara's voice was sharp. You want her to love you? You want us to trust you? Then you'll replace my father and forget him. I don't want to replace your father, Adaiz replied, her voice shaking. I only want peace. Stop saying that word, Zara shouted. Stop acting like everything is okay. Suddenly, Chidera started crying. Obina pulled her into his arms. The twins looked scared. Zara turned and stormed up the stairs, leaving the room heavy with silence. Adaiz didn't follow her. She sat down on the couch, her hands shaking. Kemi, the house manager, came in slowly, holding a tray of tea. She placed it down and looked at Adaise with calm eyes. "Walls take time to break," she said, "and some walls rebuild themselves overnight." Adaise nodded. "I thought we had reached something real." "You did," Kemi said, "but grief is like fire. It burns and then hides under the ashes. When the wind blows, it comes alive again." Adaise looked down. "I don't want to hurt her." "You didn't." "She's hurting herself, but she doesn't know how to stop." That afternoon, Amara came back from work with her tie already loose and her eyes heavy. She went straight to Adaise, who was sitting quietly in the reading room. "I heard there was shouting," she said. Adaise nodded. "She thinks I betrayed her." Amara sighed and sat down across from her. "She'll come around." "I thought she already did." Amara ran her hand across her face. "Zara is smart. She's strong, but that strength comes with deep fear. When Emeka died, Zara saw everything. She was there in the car. She was awake when it happened. She watched her father's body." Adaise's hand covered her mouth in shock. Amara's voice was quiet. "Zara doesn't sleep without checking the windows 3 times. She doesn't let anyone touch her father's room. She carries grief like armor." Adaise whispered. "She's just a child." "Yes," Amara said. They sat in silence, but she's carrying the pain of a woman. "Maybe I should step back for a while, let things cool down." Amara shook her head. "No, you stepping back will make her believe she can chase away every new thing that comes near." She looked at her firmly. "You're not the problem. Her pain is." Over the next few days, things got worse before they got better. Zara refused to eat whenever Adaise was in the room. She stopped helping her siblings with homework and avoided any place Adaise walked into. She slammed doors, gave cold stares, and even told the twins that Adaise was pretending to be nice. It felt like everything Adaise had worked hard to build was falling apart. But she didn't give up. She kept waking up early to sweep the house. She kept helping the twins with their dolls. She kept preparing lunch for Chidera and reading to Obinna at night. One evening, while Adaise was walking back to her room, she passed Zara's door and heard crying again. She paused, her hand hovering near the door. Then she turned and walked away. She had already learned you can't force healing on anyone. It has to be chosen. The next morning, Adaise stepped into the kitchen to find something unexpected. Zara was already there, peeling oranges. She looked up briefly, then looked down. Adaise didn't speak. She walked over to the sink and began washing plates quietly. For the first time, they worked in the same space without tension. After some minutes, Zara spoke. "You didn't tell her, did you?" Adaise turned. "No, I didn't. I asked Obinna. He said Mommy just watched from the hallway. That's how she knew." "I would never break your trust," Adaise said. Zara peeled another orange and dropped it into the bowl. "My daddy used to make fruit salad every Friday," she said quietly. "That day when we made it, it felt like him again, and I got scared." "It's okay to feel scared," Adaise replied. "I shouted at you again," Zara whispered. "In front of everyone." "I didn't take it personal," Adaise said gently. "I think I'm just angry at everything," Zara said. "Angry that he's gone. Angry that everyone is moving on. Angry that Mommy smiles again. Angry that you're not even trying to replace him. But I still feel like you are." Adaise put down her towel and sat across from her. "Do you want me to leave?" Zara looked at her, eyes wide. "No." Adaise blinked. "No. I don't want to chase you away." Zara's voice dropped. "I just don't know how to stop feeling angry." "You don't have to fix everything in one day," Adaise said softly. "Healing is not a straight line. Some days are better, some are worse. You're allowed to feel it all." Zara looked down. "You're the first person who talks to me like I'm not a child. That's because you're not just a child. You're a warrior." Zara smiled a little, and in that moment, something finally settled between them. Not like a movie, but real, slow, honest. Zara took a deep breath and said something that Adaise would never forget. "I don't want a new daddy, but I wouldn't mind having someone like you around." Adaise's eyes filled with tears. "Then I'll be here as long as you want me to." Zara nodded, wiped her eyes, and went back to peeling oranges. That evening, the family sat at the dining table together, all 4 children, Amara and Adais. Zara passed Adais a spoon without a word, and everyone noticed. The twins giggled. Obina raised his eyebrows in surprise. Chidera smiled like she had won a prize. Amara looked at Adais and gave a small, proud smile. Adais felt her heart bloom. She wasn't their father. She wasn't their maid. She was something else now, something special, someone chosen. The house no longer felt like it was full of broken pieces. The air was different now, softer, calmer, brighter. Even Kemi, who was always serious and quiet, had started humming to herself in the kitchen. The guards at the gates smiled more. The children laughed more. Amara stayed home longer than usual, and Adaize, she finally felt like she wasn't just passing through. She was becoming part of something whole. It had been 3 weeks since she stepped into the mansion with fear in her chest. Now she woke up with purpose in her heart. One Saturday morning, Adais was in the garden watering the flowers. She had found joy in them again. The same way she used to care for the little pots outside her room in the village, she now cared for these ones. Only this time, they stood for something more. These weren't just flowers. They were healing. She was talking softly to the roses when Chidera ran to her barefoot, her smile wide. "Uncle Adais," she shouted, holding something behind her back. "What is it?" she asked, kneeling down to her level. She brought her hand forward slowly, revealing a folded paper. "I made something for you," she said proudly. She took the paper gently and unfolded it. It was a drawing, a house with flowers in front, a tall woman, 4 small children, and a man in a blue shirt. "You drew all of us?" she asked. She nodded fast. "Yes, and that's you." Daisy looked closer. "How do you know I like blue?" "I saw you smile when you wore it last week," she said, hugging her tightly. Her heart melted. She whispered in her ear, "Can I call you Uncle Dada now? It's shorter." She laughed softly. "Of course." She smiled, then ran back toward the house. Adaize held the drawing against her chest, feeling something warm bloom inside her. Later that day, Obina came into the kitchen holding a pile of books. "Uncle Dada," he said shyly. She looked up from the vegetables she was chopping. "Yes, of course." "Can you help me with math?" Wiping her hands. They sat together at the dining table. As she explained how to solve the equation, Obina kept sneaking glances at her. She noticed but didn't say anything. Finally, he dropped his pencil. "Uncle Dada." "Yes. When I grow up, I want to marry someone like you." Adais blinked in surprise, then laughed. "You're too young for that, Obina." He shrugged. "But I mean it. You're kind, and your voice makes my heart calm." She reached out and touched his hand gently. "Thank you. That means a lot to me." He smiled and picked up his pencil again. By evening, the twins had joined her in the kitchen, asking to help fry plantains. They argued over who would flip the slices first. "Me first," said Neka. "No, I was here before you," said Nkechi. Daisy laughed. Okay, we'll take turns, but be careful. Hot oil doesn't play." They obeyed her, giggling and competing. The kitchen was filled with the smell of sweet plantains and the sound of soft laughter. Just then, Zara walked in. Everyone went quiet for a moment. Zara looked at the twins and raised her eyebrow. "So, you've joined him now?" Nkechi crossed her arms. "He's fun." Neka nodded. "And he lets us help." Zara turned to Adais, who was still smiling calmly. "You've taken over the whole house," Adais replied gently. "No." Zara stared for a long moment, then sat on a stool. "Pass me a knife," she said quietly. "I'll slice the onions." The twins gasped. Adais smiled. "Yes, Chef Zara." For the first time, Zara smiled back. That night, dinner was different. The children served themselves without being told. They passed plates politely. They shared stories from school. And when Amara walked in, still in her work clothes, she paused at the door. She watched her 4 children, all smiling, all talking. Then her eyes moved to Adais. She wasn't at the head of the table. She wasn't even talking. She was just there, present, calm, warm, and yet everything had shifted around her. She walked in and joined them. "You all seem happy today," she said. Zara looked up. "We made dinner." Amara smiled. "I noticed. Chidera pointed. Uncle Dada helped us. Neka added, he's the best teacher. Obina said proudly. She met her eyes and he looked away quickly. Math again, she said softly. Amara looked at Adaeze. Later that night, Adaeze stood outside on the balcony again. It had become her favorite spot. The stars above always reminded her of something greater, something quiet, something deep. Amara joined her, holding 2 mugs of tea. I hope you still like ginger, she said. She smiled. I never said I didn't. They stood side by side, sipping quietly. I saw the drawing Chidera gave you, she replied. Amara said. You've changed this house, she said after a pause. I didn't do it alone. You started it. She looked down at her cup. I didn't plan to stay this long. I know. I just couldn't leave. Amara turned to face her. I don't want you to. She looked up slowly. She continued. When I brought you here, I thought I was helping someone in need, but it turns out I was the one who needed help. You're not weak, Amara. And you walked in like sunlight. I was lonely. Adaeze's breath caught in her throat. I'm not saying this to confuse you, Amara said. I'm saying it because I need you to hear it. You are healing hearts that were closed for too long, including mine. Tears filled Adaeze's eyes. I'm not perfect, she whispered. Good, she said, because neither am I. They stood there in silence again. Not awkward, not unsure, just full. Full of something neither of them had planned for, but both of them had prayed for. The next morning, Adaeze woke up to the sound of running feet and laughter. She opened her door to see the twins chasing Chidera down the hallway. Catch her! Nkechi screamed. She took the last candy. Neka shouted, Chidera! Zara followed behind laughing. Obina stood at the corner holding a whistle. No running in the hallway, he said with authority. The house was alive. It wasn't just healing anymore. It was healed. Or at least it had found its smile again. Adaeze smiled. Then she heard a knock at her door. It was Kimi holding an envelope. What's this? Adaeze asked. Kimi handed it to her. Your parents. They sent a letter. Adaeze's heart dropped. She stared at the envelope for a long time. The envelope felt heavier than it looked. Adaeze stared at it, still sitting on the edge of her bed. Her fingers touched the rough brown paper slowly, tracing the edges without opening it. Her heart beat faster, and her chest felt tight. It had no name written on the front, just sealed, silent but loud with everything she had tried to forget. Kemi stood near the door, watching her quietly. Do you want me to take it back? She asked gently. Adaeze shook her head. No, I need to see what it says. She opened it slowly, her hands trembling. The paper inside was folded neatly, as if that would cover the mess the words carried. She read the first line. Adaeze, we are sorry for what happened. The tears were already rising. Sorry. Sorry for dragging her through the village square like an animal. Sorry for selling her like firewood. Sorry for not even looking back as she was pushed into a stranger's car. She dropped the letter on her bed and stood up. Kemi picked it up and scanned the rest silently. They're asking to see you, she said. I don't want to see them, Adaeze replied, her voice shaking. I found peace here. I don't want to let their poison back in. They said they'll come by the house, Kemi added. Today. Adaeze's eyes widened. Today, Kemi nodded. It seems they were never really asking. 2 hours later, Adaeze was standing at the top of the stairs when the front gate opened. A security guard walked in, followed by a man and a woman she knew too well, Okwudili and Ngozi, her parents. Her mother wore a wrapper tied tightly under her arms and a scarf on her head. Her father wore a native shirt and slippers. He walked slowly like a man of dignity. Adaeze almost laughed. They looked like parents coming to visit a son they loved, not parents who sold him for money. Zara stood beside Adaeze at the top of the stairs. Are those your parents? She asked. Yes, Adaeze whispered. Do you want me to call Mommy? Adaeze nodded slowly. Zara ran to Amara's office. Adaeze walked down the stairs slowly. Her mother's eyes lit up when she saw her. Adaeze, my son. Adaeze stopped a few steps away from them. Okwudili cleared his throat. Is that how to greet your parents? Adaeze's voice was steady. You stopped being my parents the day you exchanged me for an envelope. Ngozi raised her hands. We were under pressure. You don't know what we were going through. I was going through something too, Daisy said, but I didn't sell anyone. We came to make peace, her father said. Now that you found your feet, we thought— You thought what? Daisy interrupted. That I would bring you into this house, feed you, give you part of a life I built without you. Just then, Amara walked in. She didn't shout, she didn't frown, but her presence filled the room. Good afternoon, she said calmly. Okwudili stepped forward. Ah, madam, the great woman herself. May God continue to bless you. Amara looked at him quietly. You must be Daisy's parents, she said. Yes, madam, her mother replied quickly. Amara's famed to see our son. You missed the son you called cursed, the one you dragged into the open like a criminal. They were silent. I was there, Amara continued. I watched you trade him like yam in the market, and now you're here smiling. Okwudili looked nervous. Madam, things are different now. No, Amara said firmly. The only thing that changed is that he found a place where he's treated like a person. Adaeze turned to Amara. Can I please speak to them alone? We'll be in the garden, Amara nodded. She looked at her with care, then left. The room fell silent. Adaeze faced her parents. You have 2 minutes. Say what you came to say. Ngozi started crying immediately. Adaeze, we didn't know what we were doing. Your father lost his job. We had no food. Lady Obioma promised us help. We thought she'd treat you well. You didn't ask me, Adaeze said. You didn't care how I felt. You just handed me over. Okwudili sighed. We were ashamed. You stayed in your wife's house for 6 years with no child. Do you know what people were saying about us? So you sold me to wash away shame. We didn't know you'd end up with someone like this, her mother said, looking around the house. This house is beautiful. God has really blessed you. Adaeze's chest tightened. Now she understood. This wasn't about regret. It was about opportunity. They had seen where she landed and came to collect. She took a deep breath. You want money? Okwudili didn't deny it. We're still struggling. Adaeze's voice was clear. You'll get nothing from me. Their eyes widened. I forgave you the day Amara brought me into this house. But that forgiveness does not come with benefits. You left me when I was empty. Don't return now that I'm full. We're your parents, her mother cried. You were my parents, Adaeze said quietly. Now you're just people I used to know. She turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. I went to the hospital last week just for a general checkup. Her parents looked confused. The doctor ran some fertility tests. Adaeze looked her father straight in the eyes. The problem was never me. I am perfectly healthy. I can father children. Okwudili stepped back slowly. The years I spent in shame, hiding, crying, praying. You made me believe I was the cursed one. But it was my ex-wife all along. Her mother covered her mouth. You used my pain to cover your failures. But the truth is out now. She walked away, tears running down her cheeks, not of sadness but release. Her parents stood frozen, and for once, Adaeze didn't feel like the broken one. She felt like the storm that passed and survived. Outside in the garden, Amara stood with Zara and the twins. They turned as Adaeze stepped out, her face strong. They are leaving, she said. Amara didn't ask questions. She nodded and went back inside. Zara walked over to Adaeze slowly. You okay? I am now. Zara reached out and held her hand. Then we are too. That night the dinner table was warm, full of stories, laughter, light and peace. Real peace. Adaeze looked around at the faces. The children she once feared she'd never reach. The woman who saw her when no one else did. And now she knew the truth. She wasn't sterile, not in body, not in heart. She was full of life, full of love, full of purpose. And for the first time, she allowed herself to believe maybe this was just the beginning. Pause for a moment, my dear listener, because this revelation changes everything. For years, Adaeze carried the shame of being called sterile. Her own family rejected him. Her wife abandoned him. The entire community looked at him with pity and contempt. But the truth is a powerful force. It doesn't just liberate. It reveals who the real villains of the story are. In the days that followed, something extraordinary happened. The news of Adaeze's medical discovery spread through the mansion like a gentle breeze. not through gossip, but through the transformation everyone could see. She walked taller. Her shoulders were straight, her smile was brighter, not because she was trying to prove something to anyone, but because for the first time in her adult life, she knew who she really was. Amara noticed the change immediately. During breakfast, she watched how he interacted with the children. There was a new confidence there, a new peace, as if a weight he had carried for so long had finally been lifted. "The children are responding to your energy," she said to him one morning as they watched Chidera try to teach Adaisi a nursery rhyme in the garden. "What energy?" he asked. "The energy of a man who finally knows his worth." Adaisi looked at her. It took time to get here. The best transformations always do. 3 weeks after the confrontation with her parents, Adaisi was organizing her drawer when she found the first letter that Kemi had brought. She reread it, this time with different eyes. The empty apologies, the subtle manipulation, the greed disguised as family love. She didn't feel anger this time, she felt nothing. And sometimes, nothing is the best revenge. She folded the letter and put it in a box with other memories from a life that was no longer hers. That afternoon, Amara came home from work with a different expression. Not tired, but contemplative. She found Adaise in the library, reading to Obinna. "Can I talk to you?" she asked quietly. Obinna looked between them, grabbed his book, and left with a knowing smile. Amara sat across from Adaise. "I have something to tell you." "Okay. Remember when I told you that I saw you on your street before that day at the square?" Adaise nodded. "It wasn't just once. It was several times. I had started taking that route to work because it reminded me that there were still good people in the world." She looked at her, surprised. "After Emeka died, I became cynical. I thought all kindness had a price, that everyone wanted something. But then I'd see you day after day, just being kind, without an audience, without reward." Amara's eyes softened. "You gave me back faith in humanity before I even saved you. Because I didn't want you to think I brought you here out of pity. You never told me this, or as some kind of social experiment. I brought you here because you were exactly the kind of person I wanted my daughters to know. And your son," Adaise corrected gently. Amara smiled. "And my son." They sat in comfortable silence. "So," Amara said finally, "considering that you now know you can have children of your own, have you thought about what you want for the future?" The question hung in the air between them. Adaise looked out the window to the garden, where all 4 children were playing. Zara was pushing Chidera on the swing. The twins were collecting flowers. Obinna was reading under a tree, but watching his sisters with protective care. "I thought about it," he said slowly, "and I realized something." "What?" "I don't need to father children to be a dad. I don't need to give birth to nurture life." He looked at Amara. "Sometimes, the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into." Amara's eyes brightened. "And if I told you that I feel the same?" "About what?" "About family, about choices, about—" She paused. "About you." Adaise's heart started beating faster. "Amara, let me finish," she said softly. "I'm not saying this because I feel lonely or because I need someone to take care of the children. I'm saying it because in the last few months you've become essential." She leaned forward. "Not to replace Emeka. No one ever could. To be the man who makes Chidera laugh, who helps Obinna with math, who slowly won Zara's heart, who reminds me every day that kindness still exists." Tears began to form in Adaise's eyes. "So," Amara took a deep breath, "if you want to stay, not as a guest, not as a helper, but as family, we would like you to stay." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was full of possibilities. Adaise looked at her hands, then back at Amara. "Because once I say yes, are you sure? Once we become a real family, there's no going back." Amara smiled. "I'm counting on it." At that moment, Chidera came running through the door, her cheeks flushed from playing outside. "Uncle Dada, Mommy!" she shouted. "Come see! We planted new flowers!" She grabbed both their hands and pulled them to the garden. When they stepped outside, the other children joined them. Zara came to Adaise's side, Obinna held Amara's hand, and the twins danced around all of them. And there, surrounded by flowers they had planted together, under the sun that shone on all of them equally, Adaez finally understood what her journey had been about. It wasn't about finding a family. It was about discovering that he had always been capable of being part of one. 2 months later, in a small and intimate ceremony in the mansion's garden, surrounded by the 4 children who now called him father, Adaeze and Amara became husband and wife. It wasn't a story of replacement, but of addition. It wasn't about forgetting the past, but about creating a future. And when the officiant asked if there was anyone who objected to the union, Zara stood up. Everyone's heart stopped for a moment. Then she smiled and said, "I object to them taking so long to do this." The crowd laughed. Chidera clapped. The twins threw flower petals. Obinna tried to look mature but couldn't hide his smile, and Amara and Adaez kissed under a sky that finally seemed infinitely blue. Now, my dear listeners, let me share with you the deepest lesson of this extraordinary story. Adaeze was rejected for everything he wasn't. He was judged by what he couldn't give, discarded for what he couldn't produce, sold for what he couldn't prove. But Amara chose him for everything he was. His kindness, his peace, his ability to heal without hurting, to nurture without possessing, to love without demanding. The truth about his fertility wasn't the turning point of the story. The turning point was that his worth had never depended on his ability to father children. His worth lay in his ability to father love, hope, healing, and family. You see, in the world of billionaires, I've learned that the rarest wealth isn't measured in money. It's measured in transformed hearts, in healed children, in restored homes. Adaez became the richest man of all, not because he married a wealthy woman, but because he discovered that his own heart was a treasure that had never been properly valued. And sometimes, my dear friends, that's what it takes a lifetime to learn, that you weren't made to prove your worth to those who cannot see it. You were made to find those who always knew you were worth it. The family you choose, the peace you cultivate, the love you build slowly, patiently, gently, these are the true measures of a life well lived. Adaez's story teaches us that sometimes we are rejected, not because there's something wrong with us, but because we haven't yet found the place where we belong. And when we find that place, when we find those people, when we find that family, we discover that all the pain, all the rejection, all the abandonment led us exactly where we were supposed to be. This is the lesson of the billionaire butler, that true wealth isn't in having everything, but in being valued for who you really are. And sometimes the richest person in the room is the one who lost everything but found themselves. Until our next story, remember, you are not defined by the people who abandoned you. You are defined by those who chose to stay.